Hello friends, today we're going to talk about how countries go broke. But today, I'm gone. Share with you my personal list of principles that make countries poor and sometimes even cause financial crises. These are the big cycle. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look. There are different ways to answer this question depending on what you want to focus on. But the end result is always the same. When you have poor leadership, the country suffers. Look at Afghanistan. They've been stuck in a never-ending cycle of war and poverty because of decades of corrupt and incompetent leadership. Or look at Somalia. They haven't had a functioning government in over 20 years, and the country is still in chaos. When people aren't invested in their country's future, it can lead to apathy and a lack of participation in the political process. When this happens, the country becomes less competitive, and people have less money to spend. This can lead to a downward spiral of economic stagnation and poverty. Look at the United States. The country wastes a lot of resources on things like the military and prisons. This has led to high levels of debt, and people are starting to feel the pinch. Well, the big cycle is essentially a combination of numbers 3, 7, and 10. When a country has overpopulation, there's more strain on the resources. When there's a strain on the resources, there's more scarcity and higher prices. When there's more scarcity and higher prices, people become apathetic and don't participate in the political process. When people don't participate in the political process, you get corruption, and the country goes broke. That's the big cycle in a nutshell. When this happens, the country can easily be taken over by a corrupt elite or worse, a dictator. When this happens, the country becomes less prosperous, and people have less money to spend. When a country doesn't invest in education, its people are less likely to get good jobs and earn a lot of money. This can lead to poverty and social unrest. Look at Sierra Leone. The country has a literacy rate of only about 35%. This means that a lot of people can't read or write. This makes it hard for them to get good jobs and earn a lot of money. As a result, the country is extremely poor. This can lead to poverty and social unrest. Look at Bangladesh. The country has a population of over 160 million people. This puts a strain on the country's resources and infrastructure. Look at Myanmar. The military junta has been in power for over 50 years, and the country is still extremely poor. One reason for this is that people are apathetic and don't participate in the political process. Now, it's not just war-torn countries that suffer from poor leadership. It can also happen in seemingly stable countries. Look at Venezuela. Their leader has been in power for over 20 years, and he has basically turned the country into a dictatorship. He's also caused hyperinflation, poverty, and a mass exodus of refugees. So no matter where you live, it's important to be aware of the quality of leadership in your country. There's a link down below. Alright, on to number 1, and no. 1. War. When a country is at war, it spends a lot of money on weapons and the military. This takes money away from important things like education, infrastructure, and social services. This leads to poverty and social unrest. Look at Syria. The country has been at war for over 10 years. This has caused massive destruction and poverty. Millions of people have had to flee the country. So that's how countries go broke. If you have corrupt, incompetent, or tyrannical leaders, it can lead to all sorts of problems down the road. Number 10. Corruption. This one's pretty obvious, right? People are the most valuable resource of any country, but without education and training, they can't reach their full potential. Without infrastructure, a country can't move goods and services efficiently. Both of these things lead to low productivity, which leads to poverty. Look at the Democratic Republic of the Congo. It's one of the poorest countries in the world despite having a lot of natural resources. One reason for this is that the country has been in conflict for decades. So there hasn't been much investment in people or infrastructure. There are some countries where the tax rate is so high that if you earn $1,000 a month, half of it goes to the government. For example, when the government promises to build a bunch of new infrastructure projects, but doesn't have the money to back it up, people may feel like the government is corrupt or incompetent. This can lead to protests, instability, and even war. Look at Egypt. The government spent a lot of money on infrastructure projects like new roads and bridges. But after the Arab Spring uprising, the government had to borrow money to finance these projects. This led to high levels of debt and inflation. People were angry and felt like the government had lied to them about the economy. This led to more instability and unrest. So you only get to keep $500. Now, when you live in a place like that, you won't have much incentive to work hard and make more money because the government has just gone, nah, take half of it anyway. It's also not very appealing to live in a country where half your money goes to the government, because then you have less money to spend on imports and other stuff which can help stimulate the economy. Countries with high taxes often end up with a lot of debt because they have to borrow money to fund their operations. And this can lead to inflation and economic instability. Look at Greece. They had the highest tax rate in Europe and were one of the first countries to be hit by the recent financial crisis. Now, I'm not saying that taxes are bad. We all have to pay our fair share. But when taxes are too high, it can be harmful to the economy. And the rich who can afford to pay lots of taxes often move to countries with lower taxes where their money can go further. When a country is run by corrupt leaders, they just print money like crazy to pay for all their social programs, infrastructure projects, and wars. And then they keep printing more money to pay off the debt from all that other money they printed to pay for all those things. Now, this might work for a while, but eventually you run out of resources and the economy collapses. Look at Venezuela. They used to have the biggest oil reserves in the world, and now they rebroke because of corruption and overspending. Or look at Zimbabwe. Their currency is so inflated that they have to carry around wheelbarrows of cash for basic goods and services. Corruption doesn't always have to be on such a grand scale. It can also happen on a smaller scale through things like cronyism and nepotism. When a government gives contracts to their friends and family instead of to the most qualified people for the job, it can lead to waste and mismanagement of funds. In the end, it doesn't really matter whether the corruption is on a small or large scale. When you have corrupt leaders, they will bleed their country dry. High taxes. When you have high taxes, businesses don't invest and people don't work as hard. Number 8. Poor leadership. This one can be caused by many factors, like corruption, nepotism, or just plain old incompetence. Number 7. Lack of investment. When a country doesn't invest in its people or its infrastructure, it can quickly fall behind other countries. No. 6. Unrealistic expectations. When people have unrealistic expectations of their country, it can lead to disappointment and even anger. No. 5. Apathy. Number 4. Wastefulness. When a country wastes its resources, it can lead to scarcity and higher prices. No. 3. Overpopulation. When a country has too many people, it can lead to scarcity of resources and increased competition for jobs and housing. No. 2. Lack of education. Alright, before we get to know 1, don't forget we have another channel. Now, you might be wondering how the big cycle fits into all this. Thanks for watching. Hope you liked the video. We'll see you on the next one.